we have a round of questions and answers at the end of our panel. So first we listen to all the presenters, and I would like to invite now Sandor Fojdvari to present his paper on Ukrainian books in the Habsburg Empire, cultural context of the Orthodox confraternities with the Byzantine-Rite Slavic peoples of the Hungarian kingdom. I would like very briefly to introduce very briefly our speaker. Sandor Fojdvari studied at the Budapest University, and he defended his dissertation at Debrecen University. He was a senior research fellow at the National Széchenyi Library, postdoctoral Bolyai fellow at the Academy of Sciences of Hungary, and also researcher at the Academy of Sciences of Hungary. He retired due to health illness, but he continues his many research projects that are in several fields: Byzantine studies, Baltic studies, and also Slavic studies. And I would like to mention that in Slavic studies, Sandor Fojdvari studies the early modern confessionalization as reflected in the activity of the lay confraternities, applying Yaroslav Isayevich's findings on the Ukrainian Balkan contacts as reflected in the book Migration. And we're very much looking forward to the presentation of this paper.
Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, can you see my share screen and can you hear me? So everything is okay. Thus, we have 20 or 25 minutes. Okay, so thus the topic is a bit complicated. Thus, Ukrainian books in the Habsburg Empire, cultural contacts between Orthodox confraternities with the Slavic people in the Hungarian kingdom. Thus, let's see the topographical scene of the. Okay, so let's see the topographical scene of the topic. Thus, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth was the largest state in the early modern Europe. And the Ottoman Empire and Habsburg Empire were two other states which determined which were the greatest powerful states, determined the diplomatic and political events in Europe. So the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth was such a powerful state, such a strong state with such a weight that it was equal with the Habsburg Empire and the Ottoman Turkish Empire. Therefore, the book culture was very developed on higher level, and as we have already heard from the excellent lecture by Pavlo Yeremeyev, that the brotherhoods played a very important role in the cultural development in the Orthodox in the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. And in Hungary, those people, those ethnicities inhabited Hungary were in not so fortunate situation, because on one hand the Ottoman Empire conquered a part of Hungary, and on the other hand the Habsburg Empire ruled over Hungary. Therefore, it's very logical that the Slavic ethnicities who followed the Byzantine Christianity imported their books from the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, where the book culture was on a very, very high level, as we learned from works of Isayevich. Thus, the Slavic peoples inhabited Hungarian kingdom were Slovaks and Slovenes and Croats followed the Roman Catholic Christianity, and the Protestantism was strong among Slovaks too, and Serbs came in three waves of immigration to Hungary. So already in the Middle Ages, Middle Age, the Serbs already inhabited Hungary, but of course, due to the Ottoman conquest and the Balkan, Serbs immigrated in more and more number to Hungary. And Carpatho-Ukrainians by the ethnic name Rusyns. I have no time and no will to put in debates about Rusyns, because debates about Rusyns as an independent nation or an ethnic group appeared in the last century. But I'm not dealing with the early modern age. And Romanians were not non-Slavic people, but they used Cyrillic books for the Orthodox Byzantine-Rite liturgy. Therefore, they have their typographies, but they imported Ukrainian books too. Thus, the Carpathia-Ukrainians inhabited this so-called Carpathian Rus, and my past colleague, my good friend István Udvari, who passed tragically early in his 55, studied the Rusin ethnography and dialects, and his full bibliography is accessible on the internet. And he, who established a department under the title Rusin and Ukrainian Philology, Department of Rusin and Ukrainian Philology, he, who was a great researcher of the Rusin ethnic group and language dialect, used and named them Ukrainians. For instance, in Serbia, in Vojvodina, Udvari published a paper in Vojvodian Rusin language, Prilogi ku istoriji ukrajinskih, that is, he used even in Hungarian papers Carpatho-Ukrainian. Therefore, I can refer to the greatest expert in the field, István Udvari, who supported the Rusin, but he named them Carpatho-Ukrainians as for the early modern age. So I mean that this is all as about this question. And the Uniad Greek Catholic Church was established by the Union of Uzhhorod, that is almost a century after the half a century after the Brest Union, but the independent Mukachevo eparchy was erected only in the late 18th century. And then the Prešov eparchy was, the Mukachevo eparchy was divided, but that's already doesn't concern our topic. So you can see the Carpathian region, the Lviv, Przemysl, Ivano-Frankivsk, and the territory of Mukachevo eparchy, and Maria Poch, a very important place of pilgrimage where the original icon appeared, and it was moved to Vienna, and one can visit this icon in Vienna in the St. Stephen Cathedral in Vienna, and another icon was painted, and this made miracles too. Therefore, it became a pilgrimage center due to the miraculous icons, and a significant monastery was established in Maria Poch. This is the building of the monastery, the first floor of the monastery, and one can see that a lot of monks inhabited this monastery. But the problem is that I have already said that these people were poor, thus the Carpathian Ukrainian were poor, therefore they couldn't import these books, and Bishop Olszewski wrote to Vatican on various questions, and among other questions, Bishop Olszewski in the middle of the 18th century complained that books of liturgical, ritual, and theological character in national language, what does it mean? That the local vernacular and the local form of the Church Slavonic, because we Slavists know that the Church Slavonic has various reductions. So therefore, books cannot be printed due to the lack of typography. That's why, and they were imported from the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, the Kingdom of Poland. What does it mean? That the terrain of the crown, okay, the terrain of the crown, the Ukrainian territories belong to the terrain for the expressive price. Okay, das Carissimo Prezio Procurantur, and it is printed. That the question is that how they provided books. And my master Eszter Ojtósi, who was a researcher of the Debrecen University Library, reconstructed the library of this monastery of Maria Poch. I have already shown this place, this icon, because communists ruined all the monastery libraries. That's the other story, but all we know about this story, that this was a sad epoch in the last century. And Eszter Ojtósi came to that conclusion that the most of books were imported from Ukrainian typographies, not from Moscovian typography, the Pechatny Dvor, but from Ukrainian typographies, and is a less ratio from Belarusian typographies too. And she published about these questions also in Ukrainian in the first proceeding book of the first Ukrainian Congress, edited by Oleksa Mishanich. And those books came from the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, and I have no time for analyze of the source of books, but I highlight that even from Chernihiv at the eastern edge of the Ukrainian territories, and even from Chernihiv, some books came here. For instance, the famous book Runo Aroshenoye by Dmitro Rostovsky, and the Theatron by Johann Maximovich. And those my friends who followed my Facebook profile could see that last week I studied again when I conducted again researches in the Debrecen University Library. So these books have a lot of marginal inscription and good sources for the study of book migration. And as for Belarusian books, for instance, this Gospel is absent from Belarusian collections, so even the National Library of Belarus doesn't have any copy of this Gospel printed in Vilna or Yevia, because there were printing houses of Basilian order printing in parallel, and we can along marginal inscription, and it is not the only book where we can such long marginal inscription. So we have good sources about the usage of these books in the Maria Poch Monastery, about reading of these books. And as for this Gospel, even the catalog of Belarusian books by Golinchenko refers to the Debrecen University Library. You can see here by Cyrillic letters Debrecen. And Isayevich wrote much about the book migration too. And Isayevich, in his first book about the brotherhoods, das Bratstva ich role, that's in English, Confraternities and their role in the development of Ukrainian culture, highlighted that various publications were presented from the Lviv Brotherhood to the Mukachevo bishop, and Isayevich refers to the exact sources in the Lviv archive. This CDEI, this must be the Central Historian State Archive in Lviv. So Isayevich studied these sources, and already very earlier, because this first book of Isayevich appeared in the 60s of the last century, already he referred to the migration of books from the Lviv Brotherhood as donation to the territory of the Mukachevo eparchy. And his great monography was already mentioned by our chair, Dr. Ostap Sereda. And in this monograph published in Canada, Isayevich stated that books were donated to foreign visitors as Greeks, Serbs, Moldavians, and Ruthenians. Therefore, we have moved to the Serbian books. As far as I can check my time, I have 5 minutes, so I can summarize the second part. But before the Serbs, these are the most important relevant works by Isajevic in English in this field. So Isajevic finding is very rich, but I wanted to highlight these English language publications. And there is a city in North Hungary, Eger, where the Carpatho-Rusyns studied in the Roman Catholic seminary, because as I have mentioned, the Ruthenians in Transcarpathia were poor, and they studied the Greek Catholic priests studied in Roman Catholic seminaries, and the rich Roman Catholic bishop in Eger purchased books from the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, and such, for instance, the Supras Liturgicum were put here. And in which way, how it could put here, for Supras is for far distance, because the Bishop of Esterházy wrote to the Lviv Greek Catholic Das Uniat Metropolitan, and we have sources, actually I have found these sources, that the Pochayev Lavra gave lists about a lot of books in parallel in Polish zloty and in Rhenish florins. So this is this correspondence and this book trade is a very important source for the financial relations in the 18th century. As you can see, there are list of books from Leopolenzi, Das Lviv, Stauropegian Brotherhood, and Pochayev Lavra in parallel in Polish zloty and Rhenish florins. And as for Serbs, I have already presented a lot of presentations, so I wanted to highlight in 3 minutes what as for Serbs. In the Balkan Peninsula, due to the forcing Hellenization, the Serbs lost all opportunity for usage of Cyrillic books. But the Serbs who immigrated to the Habsburg Empire imported their books from the Ukrainian typographies. At first, it was stated out by the Serbian historian Mita Kostic, a very important and well-known Serbian historian who wrote his doctoral thesis about the book trade in the time of Maria Teresa, that is in Serbian, Teresianskog doba. And I want still highlight another candidate thesis of candidate of sciences, Ivan Mokuter, who was a Hungarian scholar, and in the manuscript, in the thesis, I photographed that he wrote in Hungarian that Russian, because he gained a candidate from the grade of candidate of sciences from the Russian-Serbian contacts officially. But he wrote that Russian influences in the first half of the 18th century are actually Ukrainian influences coming from Kiev. But when he published his papers, then he already omitted this sentence, but I photographed from the manuscript of candidate thesis. So Serbs imported Ukrainian books too, and I want still refer to this long marginal inscription I have found in the Veszprém Archbishopric Library in Hungary. I published this in a separate paper, that this book were purchased in and figures are in Latin, not in Cyrillic, but in Latin figures in the in 1736. Thus, and the National Library of Hungary has a very funny copy of the Ostrich Bible, because the title page was lost, and they Serbs made a handwritten title page, and there are a long inscription that the famous Uniat Metropolitan donated this book to Serbian Bishop Brankovic, who visited Ukrainian territories. So the Serbs imported their books mostly from the Ukrainian typographies. And what is the legacy of this book migration? What we can learn from this book migration, that the Western European cultural innovation came to the Rzeczpospolita, that's the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, and then across the Ukrainian typographies, this Western innovation came to the Serbs, not only from Vienna, but Serbs who imported books thus acquired Western cultural influences across Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth and across the book import. And this is the most important thus conclusion. And the final conclusion that I haven't spoken about, but concisely I omitted that Petro Mogila from Kiev also donated books to the Balkan, Ukrainian books and typographic equipment, because in the next ESIS convention, I wanted to gather a new panel, because an anniversary of Petro Mogila will be celebrated in the next year. And now I'm finishing with my favorite conclusion, that Riccardo Picchio must be modified, because Riccardo Picchio divided the Slavic cultures into Slavia Orthodox and Slavia Romana. But the Slavia Orthodoxa must be divided to Slavia Muscovia and Slavia Ukrainica, due to very significant differences between the Orthodoxy in the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth and Muscovy. And what is still more important, that Orthodox enclaves, Byzantine enclaves in the huge Latin cultural surroundings in the Latin Sea, in the sea of the Catholic culture in Poland and in the Habsburg Empire in Hungarian Kingdom, relied on the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, as the Orthodox Slavic enclaves in the Hungarian Kingdom were provided by their own confessional culture from Ukrainian typographies. And this is my final conclusion, and I am trying to stopping the screen sharing. So thanks so very much. And in the discussion at the end of the panel, I will more than happy to answer some question if you have some question. Thanks so much again.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation and dissertation at the University of Athens. And she's to invite Dr. Sándor Foldváry to respond to the comment in the chat box.
Yes. So I have some remarks on this question about the Protestantism, about the relation of Protestantism and the brotherhoods. Thus, to summarize, that the brotherhoods were a result of an inner development in the Ukrainian and Belarusian lands. I highlight Belarusian lands because lately we have got two great monographs from the pen of Leonid Timoshenko, and now I am referring to the first monograph about the Vilna. And generally I highlight that such a monograph must be written about Mogilev. I mentioned it in London too, in the previous session, where I wanted to try to prove that confessionalization took place in the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth too, in Orthodoxy. And generally some Polish authors too highlight that Protestantism made a significant impact. Yes, because Lithuania was Protestant and Belarusian lands were Protestants for a while. On the other hand, I mean that the culture of brotherhoods, the lay confraternities, must not be regarded as a mere impact of Protestantism. For instance, the Magdeburg Law in the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. As far as I know, the Magdeburg Law worked in Kiev, and where what was the eastern edge of the Magdeburg Law? Chernihiv or somewhere. So the urban culture was enough developed, and the bourgeois culture was enough developed, and that's why I want to call the culture, the book culture and schooling managed by brotherhoods as the Orthodox Reformation resulted in the special culture in Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth was much different from the Orthodoxy in Muscovy, which was a mere servant of the authoritarian ruler. So I want to highlight that Protestantism also made some impact, but the Ukrainian and Belarusian Orthodoxy was strong enough. For instance, the didactic gospel in Zabludov, printed by Ivan Fyodorov, was printed under the impact of the long tradition of didactic gospel in the Byzantine tradition. I can refer to papers of Sergius Temchinas in Lithuanian. Sergei Temchin, a very great scholar in Vilnius. So the didactic gospel was originated in the Byzantine culture, not under the influence of the Protestantism. So that's another story, because the manuscript didactic gospels in Ukrainian lands were made rather under the Protestant impact, and printed didactic gospel made under the Byzantine influence. So briefly, the Byzantine culture, the Byzantine Orthodoxy was not a child to be taught by the Western culture, but an adult. So I beg your pardon for this metaphor, but I already concluded my presentation with this poetic metaphor, that this picture that Byzantine culture is not a child which is learning from Western culture, but an equally adult culture and an equal partner with the Western culture. And in the monograph by Alphonse Brüning about the confessionalism in the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, the Unio non est unitas, I mean that the Western roots are well investigated, but a bit overemphasized. And that's why book of Alphonse Brüning recalled a huge number of reviews. But I will not overview the reviews now, so I only pay the attention to this question. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And I would like also to invite Dr. Anna Sapowicz from Raymond Parent. To what extent was the Union of Uzhhorod influenced by the Union of Brest? That is, did the Union of Uzhhorod have any different elements from that of Brest? And again, it's directed to all speakers. Perhaps Dr. Sándor Foldvari would like to respond, but you have to unmute yourself first.
Yes. I mean that it's somehow my task to answer it, and I can answer it, but first, yes, but not so much, because the process of the union in the Carpathian lands was a result of different factors. On one hand, the Protestantism was very strong in that land. For instance, the very powerful aristocratic family, the Rákóczi, then in the early 18th century, Rákóczi resurrection was a well-known fact in the Hungarian history. So already in the 17th century, the Rákóczi and other families supported the Protestantism. And these poor Carpatho-Ukrainians or Rusyns, Rusin I use as an ethnographic term, thus had no social elite, absolutely no social elite. So the Orthodox priests, the Batькos, were absolutely thus serfs. Okay, and the union, they had two way for some social improvement, thus accept the Protestantism or accept the church union. And the church union was propagated by Jesuits. It is a parallel with the Brest Union because we know that in Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, the Jesuit propaganda was very prolific. But in Hungary, Jesuits were provided by the family Druget. It's another high rank, so aristocratic family, had lands in Uzhhorod and surroundings, and by the Roman Catholic bishops of Eger. I mentioned Eger as for the 18th century, but when the Uzhhorod Union took place in Uzhhorod, then the Bishop of Eger was the bishop by family Jakusic, and the family Jakusic had was a landlord of villages, for instance, in the Western Hungary too, where I investigated the Serbian books in Veszprém library, and they simply sect out from the Orthodox Serbs from their villages, and that's why the Serbian books went to Veszprém library. Thus, in Eastern Hungary, in Eger, that same Jakusic family was a rich, high-rank aristocratic family, and the Bishop Jakusic of Eger provided the union too. So the union of Uzhhorod was mainly the result of gaining some social elite. And then for a century or 2 centuries, the Greek Catholic priest thus gave the only social elite of the I am finishing my answer, and then I answer the second question briefly. So there's the social elite. I mentioned Eger, and I have to mention Vienna and Trnava in Slovakia, where a lot of Greek Catholic priests studied in Roman Catholic seminaries. Thus, the Greek Catholic Church was the only way to gain some social elite. But it's a great difference from the Brest Union, because the Brest Union was based on the rich and cultural Orthodoxy in the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. They had a lot of typography. They had their culture. They had book culture. They had schools. As we are speaking about the brotherhoods, the confraternities, but in Transcarpathia, nothing was managed by the Orthodox Carpatho-Ukrainians, the Rusyns. Therefore, when they gained the church union, that was the only way for some social improvement. But in Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, parallel hierarchy, and we know the great debates between the Uniats and Orthodox in the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, but no such, because the whole Transcarpathia, the whole Rusyns, the whole Orthodoxy went to the union due to the low social position. And what is the next question? That role of so-called Magyarons amongst Russian Ukrainian clergy. So that is a phenomenon in the 20th century, in the early 20th century. For instance, historian Hodinka, but in the 17th and 18th century, still the Russian movement didn't begin. The Russian movement began in the 19th century, okay, in the 19th century. And one can visit Prešov in East Slovakia. I studied there, and one can visit the sculpture of Dukhnovich. So that question about Russian movement concerns already later epochs, and I here only refer to a very thus well-respected Ukrainian linguist Danilenko, a fellow of the Harvard and a professor of the Patch University at New York, or Andrei Danilenko. So you can, so I can speak about the epoch I investigated I dealt with in my paper. But about other question about Russian language, you can consult the works by Andrei Danilenko. For instance, in the Encyclopedia of Slavic Languages, Andrei Danilenko wrote an article about Carpatho-Rusyns. So you can Google Andrei Danilenko, and he published a lot of papers, and he is a Ukrainian author with good reputation in the United States. So, and anyone wants to read about the Russian problem, I propose Andrei Danilenko. And as for the Uzhhorod Union, it was a result to some extent of the Brest Union, but with great differences, as I summarized, that the book culture, the schooling and social position of the Orthodox Ukrainian and Belarusian Orthodoxy, and especially the Ukrainian Orthodoxy, for instance, the Mecenat Ostrogorsky to Ivan Fyodorov, no such phenomenon in Carpathia. So that's why it's another story of a poor ethnic Russian group of Carpatho-Ukrainians. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you. We still can have a couple of questions or comments because we still have some time. But if not, we can also end up earlier a little bit. I would like then to express my gratitude to all who joined this session and to thank all speakers who presented the research. I would especially like to thank Dr. Sándor Foldvary for initiating this session, organizing it, and also for devoting it to the academic legacy of Yaroslav Isajevich. And I would say the title of the session, Ukrainian Voluntary Brotherhoods of Laymen and the European Book Culture, it represents very well the academic interests, the main themes probably of late Yaroslav Isajevich, who was also very interested and devoted a lot of his energy and time to bringing these topics to international forums, to presenting and discussing medieval, early modern Ukrainian culture in at various international conferences and international associations. So I think you made a lot of effort to continue this tradition, and I would like to thank you for this, Dr. Sándor Foldvary. And with this, I will stop. If there are maybe some other comments or somebody would like to say something else, we still have time for this.
Thank you, dear Ostap, for the moderation of our session. Thanks so much.
My honor and pleasure. And I learned myself a lot from the discussion and from the papers presented. Took a lot of notes myself. So thank you again. And I think we can end up the session now. Goodbye.
Thank you.